My words will never do justice to the experience that I had of ayahuasca. In this video, I'll unravel my experiences with ayahuasca, a powerful plant medicine used traditionally by indigenous cultures in the Amazon for healing and spiritual exploration. I'll break down each of my encounters with this ancient Amazonian brew, focusing on the vivid visuals I experienced, the emotional and spiritual impact that they had after the ceremonies, and also how they've transformed my perspective on life. And my journey began in January 2022 with what was planned as this 2-week holiday to Cancun, Mexico, after months of being in lockdown. Before my trip, I had been researching bufo, this potent toad venom known for its potential to aid in overcoming addiction and mental health struggles. Now, as someone who has identified alcohol abuse and low self-esteem as things that were holding me back, I was intrigued by the possibility that this could be a turning point in my life. However, my plans took an unexpected turn. After a week of indulging in Cancun, I found myself in Tulum, where I had initially planned to partake in a bufo ceremony. But recognizing that I hadn't properly prepared, bufo requires you to abstain from alcohol, I made a pivotal decision. I cancelled my return flight home and instead chose to immerse myself deeper into the cultural and spiritual vastness of the real Mexico beyond all these tourist traps. The decision to stay in Mexico eventually extended to a 6-month adventure to go find myself, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions I had ever made. My quest led me to experience ayahuasca 5 times across different locations in Mexico. Thrice in Puerto Vallarta, once in the hills of Nayarit, and finally in Guadalajara. Additionally, I explored bufo in 2 separate sessions, which I'll detail in another video. Now, I stayed clear of the upscale retreats often run by non-indigenous people from the USA, charging inflated prices. Now, I paid a fraction of what one might pay at these upscale resorts, and to put it in perspective, I think my whole 6 months of traveling, expenses, accommodation, plus the ceremonies was below what maybe 2 or 3 ceremonies would cost in a 1-week retreat at one of these places. Instead, I sought out local communities with a genuine connection to these ancestral medicines, aligning a bit more closer to my ethical and moral values. After extensive research, I stumbled upon this page led by Victor Fuentes, a shaman and teacher of spiritual psychology and awakened consciousness, resonated with my desire for deeper understanding and healing. I didn't venture into this whole ayahuasca, bufo, psychedelic trip lightly. I spent countless hours watching YouTube videos, reading articles, reviews. I engaged in conversations via WhatsApp before committing to any ceremony. I was aware of the dangers, but I was also very much aware of the benefits and also some of the successes that people had talked about. Although I had booked the bufo first, this ceremony was coming up for ayahuasca, and I felt this strong pull towards it. It was an invitation to let go of illnesses, fears, pain, emptiness, and confusion, and surrender our burdens to the Great Spirit, the plant, or Mother Earth. Soon after booking, I received detailed preparation guidelines, and this was to enhance ayahuasca's sensitivity and absorption. The purification process now is crucial for keeping my energy clear and allowing the medicine to work its magic unobstructed. Be aware that you should not take ayahuasca if you are taking antidepressants. Potentially you could overdose with serotonin and just die of happiness. Okay, maybe that's an oversimplification, but we're told not to take antidepressants because of the reactions can be deadly, right? So as a vegetarian, abstaining from meat was just not an issue for me. However, the challenges lay in avoiding sex, alcohol, and drugs, especially because I was staying in Los Muertos Beach in Zona Romantica, which is like this hotspot for nightlife and temptations. Now, I wasn't aware of this before I had booked the spot that I stayed in, this hostel, which was just buzzing with activity and just crazy characters. Despite my surrounding debauchery, my determination to adhere to the Dieta was, let's just say, commendable. We're advised to wear comfortable clothes in light colors, bring a bottle of water, a candle, and an offering of flowers or fruit to share at the end of the ceremony. A blanket, sleeping bag, and pillow are also suggested for comfort, which I borrowed from the hostel. My ayahuasca journey officially begins as I take an Uber to the Kiekari Ranch, which is located in Nuevo Vallarta. The affordability and convenience of transportation in the area were a relief, especially when heading towards something so unknown and on my own. Now, the group gathered for the ceremony was diverse, consisting of around 25 individuals, including 5 from the US and a few from other parts of the world. We gathered from around 5 o'clock for an evening which promised to be unlike any other. Victor, our guide and leader in this journey, had this calming aura. His introduction of ayahuasca, a blend of 2 Amazonian plants, is a potent medicine that heals deep soul wounds and aligns our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual planes. Before the ayahuasca, we're given hape, a traditional Amazonian snuff. This footage is from the bufo ceremony that I had done with Victor after the ayahuasca. And the reason being is because we just weren't allowed to film in the ceremony out of respect of the medicine and the other people involved. Now, he used this special pipe to shove it up my nose and blow it in there, and it was intense. And as you can see, it stings like a mother, but it's designed to bring balance and grounding. The ceremony had its protocols, such as respecting the fire that we had gathered around by keeping facing towards it and only moving around it clockwise. The fire symbolized Tatiwari, a god of fire for the indigenous Mexicans. We're also given a bucket that was placed in front of each participant ready for the purge. Not to be confused with the Hollywood film of the same name, Victor explains that this purge is actually just a release of energies, emotions, and trauma. And this release can manifest in many ways, from vomiting to crying, and each serving as this cathartic liberation of internal burdens. Victor advises us to set an intention, but to let the experience fold without clinging to this intention. And mine was to almost let go of all these limiting beliefs that I felt were holding me back in life. Now, my heart was racing with this nervous energy and this excitement and anticipation. So I take the shot, and it's bitter and the taste lingers in my mouth, but it's a small price to pay for the journey ahead. I gulp the ayahuasca down and take a seat back around the circle, and I wait for around 45 minutes. And I'm thinking by now, is this some kind of scam, or am I just immune to it because of years of drinking? It probably just didn't even scratch the sides. Lo and behold, as the ayahuasca began to take effect, my body buzzed with energy, and the forest around us just turned into this neon-lit paradise, a bit like the Avatar films. And when I closed my eyes, the blackness that you'd normally see started to turn into colorful patterns, and then morphed into tribal imagery and distorted faces, and the fire itself projected vivid and sometimes unsettling images. Moments of paranoia were swiftly followed by feelings of immense joy, and this fluctuation of emotions felt like this LSD trip on steroids, this theme park beyond my wildest expectations that I was just playing around in. I don't think I experienced at that point any deep transformation or any healing, so to speak. A lot of what I was doing was being caught up in the spectacle of it all. Nonetheless, I would say it was enjoyable, and definitely it just piqued my curiosity to want to do more. So as the journey drew to a close, we are invited to share our experiences. Speaking of what I had gone through was both nerve-wracking and cathartic, as I have this tendency to, when I'm in a circle, just practice what I'm going to say. And I felt almost this tinge of disappointment because that familiar insecurity was still there. And I thought potentially ayahuasca was going to help me let go of it. I was wrong. But I was still confident enough to express myself and let the others know that it was a beautiful experience overall. Now, after the ceremony, I found myself in this state of introspection, pondering over the visions and the emotions that surfaced. The experience was not just about the night itself, but also about how these insights would integrate into my daily life. It became clear that the ayahuasca journey was just not a quick fix at all, but a gradual process of healing and self-discovery. So after this, I continued to go ahead with the bufo ceremony as planned. And this experience was... It was like ayahuasca on steroids, but just in a shorter period of time. But during the period that I was in, it felt like I was there for an eternity. Now, again, that's in a separate video, but it left me with more to contemplate and integrate, and a feeling that my insecurities were still there and were still holding me back. I was then invited to a 2-day ayahuasca retreat to go deeper. Now, the Uber ride is a mix of excitement and apprehension, and now familiar blend of emotions on this spiritual journey. I arrive at the serene retreat center nestled in the heart of nature. It's got hammocks scattered around the place to relax and connect with the natural world. It's just this haven of tranquility surrounded by forests, a flowing river, and freely roaming animals. But because I had booked last minute, the shared rooms were all occupied, so my accommodation for the 2 nights was the palapa, where the ceremonies would be held. I didn't mind this too much because I was given a discount on the rate as a result. Before the ayahuasca, I have an opportunity to take part in a temescal ceremony, which involves sitting in a sweat lodge, allowing me to connect with others and the elements in an intimate setting. However, at moments I feel a wave of disconnection and social anxiety, a reminder of the internal struggles I was there to confront. So for this ceremony, I set my intention, and that's to improve my connection to myself and others. In addition to the hape, we're introduced to sananga, a potent medicine derived from the roots and the barks of the Tabernamontana shrub. Sananga is traditionally used by Amazonian tribes for treating eye diseases, and its ritual healing properties, enhancing insight, visual perception, and clearing unwanted energies. So we lay down and a few drops are put into each eye, and my gosh, does it sting! It was an excruciating sensation that just lasted for a few minutes, but I was so glad when it was over because I felt more attuned to my surroundings and the inner world. Now, while the initial sensation is challenging, it does actually feel like an important part of the cleansing process overall. So in this ceremony, I took a larger dose of ayahuasca, and as I sat back on the floor, legs crossed, the air was thick with anticipation, and I was ready this time to dive further into the unknown. So within 20 to 30 minutes, the darkness before my eyes closed transformed again into these colors and then patterns. It was like I was transported into fantastical landscapes reminiscent from scenes of Lord of the Rings. These dark realms, demonic figures, and godlike entities just roamed in my mind's eye. And there was these demon-like faces that were just staring into my soul. And in that moment, I remember what Victor said about accepting and not resisting the experience. And I do that, and I embrace the monster. I tell myself that monsters and demons, they need love too, and allowed it to be there. And as soon as I did that, it just vanished, and they would just keep morphing into different things. And anytime it would get too much, I was told to open my eyes and just focus on the red light, but I chose to stay in it. And this time, what I did in comparison to the previous time is I actually closed my eyes through 90% of the experience without falling asleep. And It was so much more intense. It was like going into a completely different dimension. Now, despite the intensity and at times disturbing nature of these images, I embraced them. I allowed myself to fully experience them, and finding that acceptance transformed them into something less threatening and, I would say, even beautiful creatures. Now, the sensation of the ayahuasca was just coursing through my veins, and it was overwhelming at one point, but also orgasmic. I felt like this intense connection to everything around me, the plants, the earth, the very ecosystem I was a part of. And it was as if I had stepped into another dimension where regular consciousness was suspended and I was experiencing some kind of rebirth. The physical sensations were intense and otherworldly. My body felt like it was pulsating with life, and each vibration was just echoing through my very core. It was like this roller coaster ride full of ups and downs and twists and turns, and the sensory overload was just overwhelming and exhilarating. I connected with ancestral spirits, experiencing a form of tribal consciousness that transcended modern understanding. And this connection offered insights into addiction, societal norms, and the deeper nature of pain and healing. Interestingly, I purged very little during the ceremony. It felt as if my body and my mind were transcending the typical physical responses to ayahuasca, reaching a state of vibration and connectivity beyond the realms. Now, for several hours, I also grappled with this intense sexual urge and projections that just culminated in an unexpected purge, which left my blanket completely soiled. The purge, an integral part of ayahuasca experience, is both liberating and daunting. While the physical act was challenging, the emotional release is profound. It's as if years of pent-up emotions and traumas are being expelled from my body, leaving me feeling lighter and more at peace. I'm really grateful for one of the assistant facilitators who was like an angel in helping me cleaning up, considering I could barely walk, and I'm not gonna lie, I was embarrassed. She was like, "Don't worry, honey, it's all part of the process." And I was just so thankful that it wasn't a number 2. Now, while I'm outside and she's gone back inside to clean up the purge that I had from my organs, I'm just out there in the wilderness, tripping like hell. I even look to the bushes and they turn into these Amazonian tribes people. It's just an amazing and intense experience that's just beautiful, liberating. My words will never do justice to the experience that I had. Once the effects of the ayahuasca wore off, we gathered again for a sharing circle. Now, articulating the journey was, of course, challenging, as the depth and the breadth of the experiences were just difficult to encapsulate into words. But I was elated because I had this feeling that I was connected to the earth at that point, and I was able to see the ayahuasca was just actually working inside of me to even heal the body and the infections that were going on. And a lot of the other people talked of similar experiences, and some were talking more about internalized processes where they had met people from their past, while others had more darker aspects of their journeys. It just all was just very different, but everyone seemed to have come out of the journey somehow benefiting from it. So that day, I noted a significant shift in my consciousness. I was wandering amidst the trees, feeling this connection with nature, and every leaf was like speaking a language of empathy and understanding. And it was just a reminder that this journey was just not about experiencing ayahuasca, but also about integrating its teachings into my daily life. Now, for the first time, I reached out to my family with a level of emotion that I had never expressed before. Messaging my sisters and telling my mother that I loved her were just milestones in this journey towards emotional openness and vulnerability. we take part in this workshop about energy transference guided by Victor and his team. And this actually reinforced a crucial lesson that happiness is not found in material possessions or external validation, but emanates from within. Ceremony number 3, Victor's teachings about Mother Ayahuasca or Mother Earth took on a new form. Now, many people say that they see her as this grandmother. I didn't experience any kind of fairy godmother, let's just put it that way. Now, she appeared to me not as a human, but as a spider, and I had no idea why this could be, but looking back at it, I kept on rejecting these entities that were in this human-like form because I think it was an extension of my being shut off to people in a way. Now, this spider was gargantuan. It was just bigger than like the room itself, and speaks to me and offers me this great power and says, "You are now part of the inner circle," because I saw the beauty of it beyond its, I guess, what people would call ugly form, and I was able to appreciate it. And in that respect, when I did that, it allowed me to have access to the power because I was looking beyond the physicality and I was seeing and appreciating it as a living, breathing being. And this power is overwhelming. It's just coursing through my veins, and I'm opening these portals and turning into this almost like Doctor Strange-like character, going back in time, forward in time. At one point I'm seeing early man and we're rocking back and forth with our arms interlinked in this mud. Tribal images that are just reflecting the very living nature of this planet that we're on. Looking back at it symbolizes the interconnectivity of life and the importance of staying open to the universe's mysteries. During this ceremony, I experienced a multitude of lives and identities. I purged not just vomit, but through involuntary dance, releasing these like deep-seated traumas and negative energies, particularly from past relationships. For example, the vision of confronting my deceased father and the subsequent reconciliation was a particularly powerful moment for me. So the intention of this ceremony was for me to realize my potential. And I felt like, in a way, I did this because for many years I doubted my abilities and I put myself down. And by having this power bestowed on me, I felt accepted. Now, obviously, I don't have the power to go through portals and jump back in time and forward in time and whatnot. But in that moment, it felt so real. It felt like a waking dream, in fact. And it's not just the visuals, you're feeling the sensations, you're smelling things, you're tasting things, you're interacting with the worlds as well to a certain level. At the time when I was sharing, I probably only could recall around 80% of what actually happened. Since then, 2 years later, I can only remember about 50% of what happened. But luckily for me, I was able to journal my experiences, which helped me to reconnect and create this video retrospectively. In the days after, I stuck to the ayahuasca diet and felt a continuous glow of contentment and connection with the earth. And I was often walking around barefooted to maintain this very connection. People were just thinking I was completely nuts, but I didn't care. The ceremonies instilled a sense of purpose to heal and positively impact others. However, I was cautious not to fall into some kind of God complex. And as a result, I tried to remain grounded and understand that the true empowerment lies in humility and the acceptance that everything is as it should be. I actually experienced several reactivations, and these are moments where the sensations and the insights from the ceremony resurfaced spontaneously, but these lessened as the days progressed. And this wasn't anything frightening. In actual fact, it was quite euphoric and took me by surprise when it would happen. A couple of times it happened actually when I was sitting in the kitchen with other people, and also a couple of times on the toilet, which wasn't too bad because there was no one around to see me. My confidence seemed to be growing, and I found myself less reliant on external crutches like alcohol. In fact, I just was completely sober the whole time, and even managed to go out a few times and just felt on the dance floor, this wave of just relaxation washing all over me, and it just felt amazing. And I just wish that that feeling had lasted, but it obviously didn't. So I extended my stay in Puerto Vallarta and I embraced the joy and beauty of life there, leading me to participate in another Temescal ceremony and then consider more ceremonies with different shamans. For my fourth ayahuasca ceremony, we traveled outside of Puerto Vallarta to a ranch. Now the drive was a scenic delight. Upon arrival at the ranch, the beauty is just absolutely breathtaking. The organizers had thoughtfully provided sleeping bags, ensuring our comfort in this more expansive setting. And I learned that the group conducting the ceremony was from Brazil, and they were known for their expertise and were currently touring. And this just added to this sense of excitement and being part of something special. The ceremony, although was not as intense as the previous ones, were nonetheless a profound experience. It reinforced my decision to continue traveling and shifted my priorities from ambitions back home to exploring deeper within me and around me. Again, I experienced a multitude of emotions, going into different dimensions, delving deeper into the addictions that I felt like I was carrying with me for most of my life. And also, overwhelmingly, I just felt more connected to people after doing that particular ceremony. And I wanted to extend that by staying in Mexico for longer. My fifth and final ayahuasca ceremony took place in Guadalajara, a city whose energy and people just connected with me deeply. The ceremony was held in a backyard of a local person's house, and it created this kind of intimate and authentic atmosphere. The facilitator of the ceremony was also a great singer, and he added this unique charm to the experience. In this ceremony, I connected with ancient energies and the sense of unity with the universe. This time when I shared with the others, I expressed how much I was trying to become this perfect version of myself. And frankly, it was just never attainable or even necessary. And just that expression and ownership of that statement just allowed me to just become more content with who I was and the journey that I was on and the places that I was going to. I continued to travel for a few more months, visiting Colombia, then Peru, where I did 3 ceremonies, Chile, Argentina, and then Brazil, where I did 1 final ceremony before flying back to the UK. Now, the last experience was just something else altogether, which made me go back to Brazil 6 months later, and I continued my experimentation with altered states of consciousness. Throughout my experiences with ayahuasca in Mexico, I learned invaluable lessons about life, healing, and consciousness. Ayahuasca taught me the importance of releasing past traumas, fears, and limiting beliefs. It showed me that true healing involves confronting and letting go of the burdens that we carry. The ceremonies deepened my understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. They reminded me that we're not just isolated beings, but we're integral parts of a vast living universe. Setting intentions and approaching experiences with mindfulness was crucial. This practice allowed me to gain the most from each ceremony and apply the insights into daily life. On a personal level, I found myself more open to expressing my emotions, something that I had struggled with before. And this included reaching out to my family and expressing love and gratitude, marking a significant shift in my personal relationships. And just be grateful for the things that I do have, rather than dwelling on things that I can never be or never have. While I still experience moments of self-doubt, the journey has equipped me with the confidence to navigate these challenges with greater resilience and understanding. It all goes back to seeing those demons and understanding that they're part of who I am and embracing them and just allowing them to be where they are. Overall, my understanding of plant medicines has evolved. As well as healing, they are gateways to expanding consciousness, understanding the self, and connecting with the universe. They offer insights into the intricate web of life and our place within it. Another significant change in me is that I haven't drunk alcohol in 371 days and haven't had a cigarette either. And this shows for me the power of ayahuasca because it opened up my understanding of addiction and how it was holding me back and how I was using these substances as a crutch. And I just feel so much more lighter, happier, and overall more connected. Integration is a critical aspect of working with plant medicines, and it involves reflecting on the experiences, applying these insights into daily life, and making the conscious changes based on these lessons. Now, the most valuable lesson I learned was acceptance. Just accepting who I am, where I'm at, and where I'm heading, and it just lightens the load off me tremendously. For those of you considering a journey with ayahuasca or any other altered states of consciousness, it's essential to understand that these experiences are not a cure-all. They're powerful tools for exploration, yes, and understanding, but they require respect, careful consideration, and of course, integration, which is the most important part. And some may find what they're looking for in a single ceremony, while others may feel the call to explore further. Please do subscribe to be informed of upcoming content.